We're going to go to FAFSA.gov. Next slide, please. We're going to click on Start Here. And it's going to bring us to the next slide. All right. Now, one thing I want you to remember is off to the side. I had to cut this out of my screenshots. Off to the side is going to be what's called help and hints. These are going to help you answer the current question that you're on. Okay? If you're on a tax return question, it's going to tell you exactly where to go to on your tax return to get the answer. Okay? Or if you're on a citizenship question or whatever, it's going to tell you, it's going to help you in answering the question. So, in these screenshots, what we're going to do is we're going to take me back in time to when I was 18 years old. We're going to submit a FAFSA for myself with my parents' information. Okay? So, this is where I'm going to log in. I'm going to use my first name and my last name as it appears on my Social Security card. Next, my Social Security number. Next, my date of birth. Okay? Any questions on this slide? It's pretty easy. Next, we're going to click here where it says Start 2012-2013 FAFSA. Before we do that, I'd like for you to look in the lower left-hand corner. You see where it says PIN status? I already have a PIN number, so it says my PIN is active. Okay, we would click on Start 2012-13 FAFSA. Next slide. The next slide is where we're going to create a password. This is not your PIN number. This is just a password that you can use to access the FAFSA. If you go home tonight, you get started, you get tired, you want to finish it tomorrow, you're going to need this password to access the FAFSA. So again, this is not your PIN number, it's just a password that would be easy for you to remember. You can click on Next. This is where we tells us what we can do. How can I get help completing the FAFSA? How many steps does it take to complete? How long will it take? Can I save my FAFSA? Documents that are going to be needed. How do I sign the FAFSA? And FAFSA on the web, security and privacy. I'm going to click on Next. It's going to give me student demographic information. My name is already populated there. I'm going to enter my middle initial. My Social Security number is already there. My date of birth. Wants to know my gender, male or female. Next would be my address. This would be the address that you want all financial aid related information to be sent to. Next question would be one of our state qualifying questions. Have you lived in Michigan for at least 5 years? For the state of Michigan, you had to be a Michigan resident before July 1st of 2011. Next, my phone number. Next, my email address. Next, the student's marital status. Next, do you have a driver's license that you want to provide? If you don't have a driver's license, you just answer no. Any questions on this? Yes, sir.
Will marital status be a factor when determining financial aid?
Great question. Do we have any students that are getting married right out of high school? Okay, it usually doesn't happen too much anymore. If your student is married, then they're automatically an independent student, so they're not going to look at parental information. Okay, good question. Yes?
Get a new password every year.
Pardon me?
A new password every year.
Okay, the question is, do you need a new password every year? I think you can use the same one or you can use a different one for each year. Yeah, but your PIN number is going to stay the same. Good question. All right, we're going to click on Next. Still pretty easy. Next would be student eligibility. Are you a U.S. citizen? It's going to give you a few options. Yes, I'm a U.S. citizen, eligible non-citizen, or I'm neither. In my example, I'm going to click I'm a U.S. citizen. Next would be, are you registered with the Selective Service? If my 17-year-old says no, that they're not, or my 18-year-old male says no, I'm not, then it's going to ask you the question, do you want to register with the Selective Service via the FAFSA? If your male student is 17, you can click on yes. When he turns 18, he'll automatically be registered. If your student's 18 and not registered, he can answer yes, and he'll automatically be registered, and he'll receive his Selective Service card in the mail.
Will that question be there if you have a female?
Good question. The question is will that question be there if you're female? I believe through the skip logic that would be skipped. Okay, good question. All right, next question. When you begin college in the 12-13 school year, what will be your high school completion status? I'm going to be a high school graduate, so I would put high school diploma. Next, when you begin the 12-13 school year, what will be your grade level? Do we have any students that are dual enrolled right now, taking college and high school classes? Got a couple hands popping up. If you have that situation, you'd still want to answer never attended college/first year. Next, when you begin the 12-13 school year, what degree or certificate will you be working on? It's going to give you a lot of different options: certificate, associates, bachelor's, second bachelor's, master's. I'd put at that point in time, I'd put the highest degree that the student plans on obtaining. Next, will you have your first bachelor's degree before July 1st, 2012? Yes or no? Last, they want to know the student's biological parents' highest schooling that they've completed. It's going to give you 4 options: middle school, high school, college, or unknown. This is usually used for state scholarship purposes only and doesn't affect eligibility for federal aid. All right, next slide. Next is where you're going to enter the high school that the student attended. And it gives you the option to search for the high school. I use this screenshot because Lamphere High School in Madison Heights was my first one that I did this year. So I keyed in Lamphere High School in Madison Heights, Michigan. Came up on the bottom there, and then I selected them. Click on next. All right, next is where we enter the school codes. The green box is pointing to where you can search for school codes. So it gives you the option to choose the state that the school is in, the city, and the name. You enter that information, either that exact school will pop up, or you may have a couple different options that you can choose from. You select the one you want, or if you know the school code, you can enter it where the red box is pointing to. Baker College of Auburn Hill School code is E00466. Next slide. In our example tonight, we're going to use Central Michigan and Eastern Michigan as our school options. You'll notice in the middle of the screen there you have housing plans. It gives you 3 options: on campus, off campus, or with parents. If your student is planning on living in the dorm, you probably want to click on campus, and then again, be proactive. Follow through with the school to find out what the process is to get in the dorms. You have a question? Okay, the question is, if you're going to be living with relatives, what should you put? Should you put off campus or with parents? I'd say if you're living with your parents, you click on with parents. If you're living with another relative, I would just put off campus. Okay? All right, we're going to click on next. Okay, next is going to give us the information about the schools that we listed on the FAFSA. It's going to give us, or that we chose, it's going to give us a lot of information about the schools. It gives us the school name, their address, their school code, their email or their website, the type of school they are, their tuition, their net price average, the graduation rate, retention rate, and transfer rate, all of which you can use in your decision-making process where your son or daughter is going to attend. Click on next. It's going to bring us to our dependency questions. If your student can answer yes to any one of these, then parental information is not going to be needed to submit the FAFSA. The financial aid office may ask for documentation proving why you answered yes. If your student was married, they may ask for the marriage license. If your student has a child that they're going to be supporting, they may ask for the child's birth certificate and possibly proof that your student is providing more than 50% support for their child. Okay? We're going to go through these questions rather quick. First, were you born before January 1st of 1989? As of today, are you married? At the beginning of the 12-13 school year, will you be working on a master's or a doctorate program? Do you have children who will receive more than half of their support from you now and through June 30th of 13? Do you have dependents other than children or spouse who will live with you and receive more than half their support from you now and through June 30th of 2013? Are you currently serving on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces? Are you a veteran of the Armed Forces? At any time since you turned age 13, were both your parents deceased? Were you in foster care? Or were you a dependent award of the court? As determined by a court in your state of legal residence, were you an emancipated minor? As determined by your court state of legal residence, were you in legal guardianship? And last, on or after July 1st of 2011, were you homeless or were you at risk of being homeless? Okay, so those are our dependency questions that determine if the student's independent or dependent. If they answer yes to any one of those, then they be considered an independent student. I'm going to click on next. All my answers tonight are going to be no. It tells me based on answers to my dependency questions, I'm considered to be a dependent student. This means I must provide parental information. It also tells me what to do if I can't provide parental information. Up to a few years ago, if a student's parents refused to provide their information, the student was out of luck. They either paid cash for college or they didn't go. The government recognized this and they created what's called a parent's refusal to complete the FAFSA. Sometimes for various reasons, whatever reasons, parents do not want to provide the information on the FAFSA. If that's the case, the student can still qualify for a $5,500 unsubsidized student loan. Okay? It's not much. It might help them get started where they can attend part-time, but it's at least something in these unusual circumstances. I think we have a question. Okay, the question is in regards to, I believe, the third question where you'd be working on a master's or doctorate. That question is assuming that the student already has their bachelor's and that for this next school year they're working on a master's or a doctorate. Okay, good question. All right, so I'm going to provide parental information and we're going to click on next. The next is going to be parent demographic information. They want to know as of today, what is my parent's marital status? I'm going to give you several options: married, separated, single, divorced, widowed, etc. So in my example, again, we have biological mom, dad, brother, sister. My parents are going to be married. The next answer, they want to know, when did my parents get married or remarried? So this is a true answer. My parents were married in September of 1961. They just celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. Next question, they want to know, what is my father or stepfather's social security number, last name, first initial, and date of birth. And then the next set of 4 questions are the same thing, but they apply to the mother or stepmother. Social security number, last name, first initial, date of birth. Okay? If we have a situation where brother, sister live with biological mom, she's not remarried, we're going to leave father/stepfather's information blank. It will allow you to do that. If biological mother is remarried, then you're going to enter step-parent, stepfather's social security number, last name, first initial, date of birth. Okay? All right, next slide. Next slide, they want to know my parents' email address. Next question would be my parents' it's another state question. Have my parents been a Michigan resident for at least 5 years, yes or no? Next question, they want to know the household size. That would be the number of people that are going to be in the household for the next school year. So in our example, we've got mom, dad, brother, sister. So we have 4. What do we do if grandmother is coming to live in the household? Do we count her? Okay, we got, see a head shaking yes. Some blank stares. Okay, if mom and dad are going to be providing more than half support for grandmother for that academic year, then yes, you can include her, so we would have 5. If grandma has her own pension, social security, whatever, and she's providing more than half of her own support, then you cannot include her. Question? Good question. The question is, if grandmother is living at an assisted care facility, but parents are providing more than half support, correct, for that facility? I believe that you can include her. I don't think it matters where that she's living at. Okay? Good question. What if we have niece and nephew that come to live with mom and dad? Can we include them? As long as mom and dad are providing more than half support. Yes, sir? Good question. The question is there only enough room for one parent email address? The answer would be yes. Yeah, just one. But that's for the parent. You can also, it's going to ask for the student's email address too in the application. So if you want to substitute that, you may. Okay, next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't move back one. I'm sorry. To the one that we're at, please. They want to know the last question. Of all the people in the household, how many are going to be attending college? for this academic year. So in our example, we got brother, sister, so that would be 2. What if mom and or dad are attending college? What do we do then? Pardon me? Okay, somebody said add them. Anyone else? Okay, you cannot automatically add parents that are attending college. However, it is a basis for reevaluation. Okay, so after you get the award notification, contact the school, let them know that mom and or dad are attending college. They'll have what's called a parent college form you complete. They'll request proof that the parent is attending college. Then they might be able to add one or both the parents attending college, which could lower the FC. Question?
On the household size, there's 4 total in the house now. One's going to college in the fall, so we list 4 and then 1?
Good question. The question is, what if you have a student that, if they weren't going to college, they would be still in the household and the parents would be providing for them. If you have a student away at college, you can still include them in the household. Okay? As long as they're still considered dependent for financial aid purposes. Okay? Good questions. All right, next slide, please. All right, next, they want to know, for 2011, have your parents completed their IRS income tax return? So remember, I told you it's important to get your application in early. They're going to give you some options here. One would be already completed, or will file, or not filing. So if you're using 2010 information, or you're estimating 2011, you click on will file, and then when you get your 2011 taxes done, you're going to go back in and make corrections. Okay? The next question says, this is all about the IRS data retrieval. If you meet that criteria, whenever you finally do get your 2011 tax return finished, it's possible for you to have the information transferred directly from the IRS to the FAFSA. Okay? That way you don't have to type it in yourself once the 2011 taxes are done. Okay, next please. And then this is just more about the IRS data retrieval. If you choose to do that and you meet the criteria for it, you would enter your PIN number, which again serves as your electronic signature. Click on next. Next we're going to get into tax return information. And we're almost finished, by the way. Okay, this is parent financial information. Your student is going to have student financial information as well for both their tax return and their assets. I'm not going through that tonight due to time constraint reasons. We're just going to focus on the parents' questions. But the parent questions and the student questions are going to be identical, so you have to answer them for both if your student has assets and or they worked for 2011 and filed a tax return. So our first question is, what type of income tax return did your parents file for 2011? It's going to give you the options of 1040A or EZ, 1040, a foreign tax return, or not filing. In our example, my parents are filing a 1040. Next, what was your parents' adjusted gross income for 2011? My answer would be $75,000. Remember, off to the side, you're going to have the help and hints option. That's going to tell you where to go to on your tax return to get the answer. Next, we're going to talk about income from work for the father and the mother. Income from work comes from 4 sources. Wages, where you receive a W-2. Business income, where you do a Schedule C. Farm income, where you do a Schedule F. And partnership income, where you do a Form 1065. All 4 of those are considered income from work for financial aid purposes. So in my example, my father's income from work is $50,000, and it's comprised of this. Let's say that my father worked for General Motors last year. His W-2 income was $40,000. Okay, so that's easy. We use 40. Let's say that when my dad's not working for General Motors, he's out back in the backyard at the pole barn rebuilding car engines. So let's say for 2011, he rebuilt car engines. He filed a Schedule C. He had business income. Let's say his profit was $5,000. So we got the 40 from General Motors and the $5,000 for business income. Let's say that my dad's just a workaholic. He's not working at General Motors, not rebuilding car engines. He's working in the field that we have in the backyard planting corn. So he plants the corn in the spring, harvests it in the fall, takes it out to the road, puts it on the table, people drive by, they buy it. Let's say it was a good year in 2011. His farm income was $5,000. So we have 3 forms of income from work for my dad. General Motors of 40, business income of 5, and farm income of 5 for a total of 50,000. Okay? Let's say that my mom worked. Let's say that she works for Verizon. Let's say that she earned 25,000. Her W-2 income was 25,000, so I'm going to plug it in on that line. Last question. As of today, is either of your parents a dislocated worker? Yes or no? We already talked about this for special circumstances. You can answer yes or no to this. If you answer yes, don't depend on the school to automatically do something for you. Get on the phone and tell them about the mitigating circumstances. Any questions on this slide? Yes, sir.
And this is the case of whatever household the child is coming from that's going to college. In a case of a single-parent family, you'd only list whatever parent's income.
Good question. The question is, if we have a situation where brother and sister live with biological mom and she's not remarried, then you would just skip the father question, okay? You would just use the information from the mother's tax return.
Is that the case in joint custody as well, or just sole custody?
Okay, the question is in regards to joint custody. If you have joint equal custody, you're going to use the parent's information for you would use the parent who provided more than 50% support for that child for the last 12-month period that the student received support from a parent. Okay? It gets kind of tricky there. If you have specific family situations, you may want to utilize the contact us option. Call the Department of Education, explain the family situation. They can guide you as to what parents' information to use. Next, please. Do we have a question? Yes. The question is in regards to Social Security disability. You're referring to like SSI? Okay. Social Security income and SSI income and certain other untaxed income is not considered in the EFC formula, and we're just about to that point, so I should be covering it. If I don't, raise your hand, please. Continuing with parent financial information. Next, they want to know, enter the amount of parents' income tax for 2011. This is the tax on taxable income. Commonly, people make an error on this question. They enter the taxes withheld from the W-2s. Again, utilize the help and hints off to the side. That'll tell you exactly where to go to on the tax return to get the answer. Next, enter your parents' exemptions for 2011. In my example, we have 4. Next will be where we report additional financial information. These are exclusions in the financial aid formula. These are good items. These are items like the education credit, child support paid, taxable earnings from a work-study program, grant and scholarship aid reported to the IRS, combat pay, and earnings from a cooperative education program. If you have any of these, you click on the box. It's going to tell you where to go to. So in my example, I clicked on that we have education credit, and as you can see, it tells me where to go to on the 1040, line 49, to get the answer. Okay? I'm going to click on next. It's going to talk about untaxed income. Untaxed income would be like 401k contributions, IRA deductions, child support received, tax exempt interest, untaxed portions of IRA and pensions, housing, food, and other living allowances paid to members of the military or clergy, veterans and non-educational benefits, and other like workers' comp or disability. I clicked on the first box for 401k contributions. It tells me where to go to on my W-2 to get the answer. To find that answer, I'm going to go to all my W-2s, 12A, box 12A through 12D. If I have any of those codes, I'm going to total them up and then enter the answer. We have a question? Okay, the question is in regards to exemptions. If your parents are both married, what do you use? Again, the help and hints off to the side, it'll tell you what line number on your tax return to go to get that answer. Okay? It'll tell you exactly what line number to go to. Okay, so in my example, I have 4. Okay? I'm going to click on next. Okay, next I'm going to ask you to refer to your orange handout. We're going to talk about assets and investments. Before we go through what they consider as assets and investments on the FAFSA, I'm going to talk to you about the simplified needs test and I'm going to talk to you about the automatic zero EFC. I'll tell you about the automatic zero EFC first. In my example, if my parents' taxable income was $23,000 or less, and they meet one of these three criteria, they were eligible to file a 1040A or EZ. They received, somebody in the household for the last 2 years, 2010 or 2011, received what's called a means-tested benefit, like SSI, food stamps, reduced lunch, WIC, cash assistance, or parents of dislocated worker. The student's EFC is automatically zero. They're not going to look at the income. They're not going to look at the assets. The EFC is zero. The student automatically gets $5,550 in the Pell Grant. Okay? Next, we'll talk about the simplified needs test. If my parents' income on their tax return was $49,999 or less, and they meet one of those three criteria that we just talked about, eligible to file a 1040A or EZ, somebody in the household for the last 2 years received a means-tested benefit, or parents of dislocated worker, then they're not going to look at the assets in the EFC formula. Okay? All right, let's talk about what they consider as assets. Net worth means, and this is on your orange handout, net worth means current value minus debt. If net worth is negative, enter zero. Investments include real estate, but not the home you live in. So if you have a cabin up north, you have to include it if it has a positive net worth. Okay? If you could sell it for $100,000, but you owe $150,000 on it, then you wouldn't include it because your net worth would be negative. Continuing, trust funds, UTMA accounts, money market funds, mutual funds, CDs, stock options, bonds, other securities, installment, land sale contracts. Continuing, qualified educational benefits or education savings plans like MET and MESP. They go on to tell you, for a student who must report parent information, the accounts are reported as parental investments in question 89, including all accounts owned by the student and all accounts owned by the parents for any member of the household. So in our example, mom, dad, brother, sister, if my parents had a MET contract for me and my sister, we have to total both of those and include those as an investment for my FAFSA. The same goes for my sister's FAFSA. Okay? All right, next we're going to go to the next slide, please. We're going to talk about what is not included as investments. The home you live in, the value of life insurance, retirement plans, 401k plans, pension funds, annuities, non-educational IRAs like Roth, KEO plans, etc., or cash savings and checking accounts that have their own question. Okay? Investment value means the current balance or market value of these investments as of today. Investment debt means only those debts that are related to the investments. Okay? Next slide. I'm not going to read all this next slide to you, but if you have a business, a small business, and you have 100 or fewer employees, you do not have to include the net worth within business as an investment on the FAFSA. Okay? Next. All right, next we're going to have a little bit of discussion about assets and investments. Next question would be, as of today, does the total amount of my parents' current assets exceed $71,000? Based on the answers that I've given to the questions so far, they've determined that based on the age of my older parent in the household, we have what's called an asset protection allowance. Okay? So $71,000 of my parents' assets are going to be protected in the EFC formula. Okay? My parents are older, so that was based on my parent being 65 or older. Your students are 18. Let's say that we have a parent that's 50. Asset protection with two parents in the household, with the age of the older parent being 50, would be about $46,600. Okay? Parent that's 45 would be $41,300. Parent that is 60, about $61,400. Okay? Next slide. It says, as of today, does the total amount of my parents' current assets exceed $71,000? If they do not, then I would answer no. Okay? That means that up to $71,000 of my parents' assets would not be included in the formula. I'm going to answer yes to this question. First question, they want to know, as of today, what is my parents' total in cash savings and checking? My answer is going to be $1,000. Next, they want to know, as of today, what is the net worth of my parents' investments, including real estate, but not the home they live in? My answer is going to be $80,000. And the last question, they want to know, as of today, what is the net worth of my parents' current business and or investment farm? My answer is going to be 0. So my parents' total assets and investments is actually going to be $81,000. So this is how it works. We have $81,000 total investments. I have an asset protection allowance of $71,000. They're going to subtract that $71,000 from the $81,000. They're only going to look at 10% of my parents' assets in the EFC formula. Okay? It gets better. They multiply that 10,000 by 12%. Look at 12% of the net assets. So only $1,200 is going to go toward my EFC calculation, okay, with assets of $81,000. Okay? All right, next slide. Next slide is where we start going into student tax information and asset information. Like I told you, we're not going to go through that for time purposes, but these questions are exactly like the questions that we went through for the parents, for both the taxes and the assets. Okay? Almost done. Next slide. Next is where we sign and submit. They want to know, how do you want to provide signatures? Sign electronically with my pen, print a signature page, or submit without signatures. Next, you have to read a disclosure. You agree to that. Click on Next. Gives us the same information for the parent. How do you want to provide the signature? Electronically with a pen, print a signature page, submit without signatures, read the disclosure, agree. Got to be careful now. And this is cut off at the bottom. Some people think just because they click on agree, they're good to go. There's a blue box down in the lower right-hand corner that says submit my FAFSA now. Make sure that you submit that, okay? Next slide. We are done with my FAFSA. You get my confirmation page. Up at the top, I have my confirmation number. Gives me the date I submitted it and the time. I have my data release number. We already talked about that. Going on down to where the green box is. Remember I told you earlier, I used the screenshots from the FAFSA demo site. Based on entering this income and asset information, they gave me a $99,000 EFC. Don't let that frighten you. It assigns that if you had no income, okay? I actually did the hand calculation for the EFC based on this income and asset information that I gave to you tonight, and a household size of 4 with 1 in college, okay? So, my hand calculation tells me that my EFC is $6,086. That is accurate based on this tax and asset and household side information that we went through tonight. Okay? Now, if I had a dislocated worker in my family, I want to contact the financial aid office. I'm trying to get that EFC down. I'm just barely not eligible for Pell. To be eligible for Pell, it had to be between 0 and 5273. If I have a mitigated circumstance, they might be able to help me at the financial aid office to get that number lowered to increase Pell Grant. Off to the right, it tells me what my Stafford loan eligibility is, which is $5,500. I'm going to click on Next. It gives me the graduation rate for, remember we use Central and Eastern Michigan. It gives me the graduation rate, retention rate, and transfer rate for the schools that I listed on the FAFSA. Next. We're done. I want to thank you for your time tonight. It's been a great audience. You asked a lot of good questions. I always enjoy coming to Milford. You guys have a lot of great questions, and I really appreciate it. I hope the presentation has been beneficial in your planning for your son or daughter's education. Again, if you have any questions at any time, it doesn't matter if you attend Baker College, feel free to contact me. I will follow up with you, I promise. Okay? Have a good night, drive careful, stay warm. Thank you.